What's up, guys? Welcome back to Manifest Your Success podcast. Fiat is a special series of our podcast where we cover all things Web3, such as blockchain technology and how it can revolutionize our society. In this episode, we are joined by Hamdee Khader, CEO and co-founder of DeVo Protocol and dual degree JD MBA candidate. We dive into why industries like philanthropy should be decentralized, why decentralized organizations incentivize participation, and how to onboard users to blockchain technology.
All right, welcome to the show, Hamdee.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Let's get right into it, I guess. So on the theme of like crypto and blockchain, I guess when did you first come across it?
2017. It was around 2017. I just graduated from state. I had a couple of months to where there was like a brief gap between I started my job, and then I started to look into this crypto thing, and I was trading. Right, I was doing good. It's funny now because I go back to my Coinbase and I look at the price of Bitcoin. It was like 10,000. I was like, damn it! Like, why the hell did I sell that shit? You know what I'm talking about? But yeah, no, I started trading a little bit, learning more. But what's funny is the fact that now, since I've started the startup, I found out that I knew nothing, like literally nothing about what it really meant, what crypto really meant, the revolutionary impact that it has. But yeah, that's when I started.
So you just started off like trading it. You didn't really you didn't understand the value in it. You were just like, okay, this is everyone's doing it, so I might as well hop in. Is that like what it was?
100%. It was it wasn't even that popular back then. People thought I was crazy. It's like, what are you trading? Like internet money? Like what are you doing over here? But no, it was great, and I was just normally speculative, right? I saw the value of it. I saw it was going up and down. I believe I used to trade Ripple. When it was going up really, really good, Ethereum, Bitcoin, the good stuff.
Yeah. So I mean, so when I first got into crypto, me and Sam kind of rode the wave together. Yeah. And I first came to the idea of Bitcoin. I was like, okay, this is Bitcoin. And I never really dove deep into a rabbit hole until like months after I actually knew what it was or was familiar with it. So did you ever dive into a deep rabbit hole where you were like, okay, this is more than just something I can just trade with, and it's actually going to be something that will apply to hundreds of things in life?
Yeah. What's interesting is that's actually how I started the startup, right? Is that, just some backstory in relation to that. When I was at state or, now when I'm at UNC, is the fact that I've always tried to spend a lot of time really starting my own goodwill projects, right? I started the statewide voter program at state. I used to be, part of multiple different student organizations. And, I saw there was a lot of problems with that, right? I couldn't get volunteers, couldn't get donors. And then, I started hearing more at that point about, how blockchain was really revolutionizing the space. It was in the back of my mind. I knew crypto was revolutionary. I didn't know much about it. But then, around, 2.5 years ago, I started reading more. And I was just shocked. And I was like, this is going to be a game changer. But what I found out was it was only being applied to well-established industries. You know what I'm talking about? Like the banking industry is pretty well established. There's no huge need, in terms of people need help, for example. So I thought to myself, well, can we utilize blockchain technology not in order to help these people uplift their lives, but also maybe even give a good or a great return for people who actually be a part of this. And that's how it all started, right? Then I started reading more, and then I met Adam. And the rest is history.
Yeah, so I guess can you you sort of started to answer this, but could you briefly just describe what DeVo Protocol actually is and what you're trying to do with it?
Yeah, 100%. It's like I'm speaking Spanish right now. No, 100%. So what DeVo is from a broad standpoint is the fact that we tokenize the philanthropy sector, right? And when you tokenize the philanthropy sector, a lot of the problems that exist get eliminated. So let's start with the problems. What problems do exist? Donors don't know where their money is going, right? And, I think there's a stat where only 18.5% of Americans highly trust volunteer organizations. So that's one problem. The other problem is the fact that volunteers are not rewarded for their time, right? And then you sometimes get the question of, well, aren't they not supposed to be rewarded for their time? Yeah, no, only the CEOs of those nonprofits are supposed to be rewarded, right? Screw the volunteers, I guess. And then so the third point would be the fact that, people like me who want to start their own projects don't have the resources, don't have volunteers, don't have donations. And so when you tokenize the space, not only are those problems solved, right? But also what happens is the fact that you now create a market in philanthropy. And when you create a market, there's financial return. So if you want to think about it like this, in every single industry out there, right? Where there's a problem that equals a market opportunity. But in philanthropy, on a broad scale, a problem just remains a problem because there's no high ROI to solve that problem. We come and we fix that, and by creating a market, we solve those problems.
That's awesome, man. Well, first off, I want to say philanthropy is awesome, and I love you doing that at such a young age, man. That's really cool. So there's a lot of people listening right now that are probably not familiar with the term tokenize. So could you just like describe the term tokenize, and then could you say why like the way people do that before, like what they're doing like right now, how does tokenizing benefit to philanthropy in your business?
Yeah, 100%. So basically, when I say tokenize, it's creating a market that's surrounding around a specific token, right? When that happens, that token is now a utility token because it's utilized for something, right? So, I'll give a hypothetical example. When a donor wants to donate money on DeVo, right? And this is actually live on our DApp right now, our decentralized application. What they do is that they have to pay a transaction fee. Now that transaction fee is in DeVo, right? So now it's tokenized because you're utilizing the DeVo token to pay for that service, right? So that's the token. It's creating a market surrounding around a token. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So that's the whole point of it. And the reason why you have to do it like that is there has to be an incentive, right, for individuals to put money in this system. And the reason why you need to put money in the system is in order to create the processes to solve these problems, right? So, we spent so many resources creating this DApp, right? And this DApp, I'll give you an example. What happens is, and this is like just at the beginning stages, donations are locked in a smart contract or escrow, right? It's just like locked in a pool, and are only released on milestone basis. So like a project signs up, they have to list their project in milestones in very clear terms. Donors see it, they like what they see, they donate the money, that's locked, right? And then that money is only released on a milestone basis when the volunteer organization or project says we've completed a milestone. And then when the donor says, yes, you have completed that milestone sufficiently. And then that money is released per that milestone to specific parties indicated. Right. But in order to create that system, in order to keep building upon that system, right, that's going to cost money, right? And how do you get that money? You make it incentivizing. How do you make it incentivizing, right? You want people to invest in it, right? And they invest in the token because that token is going to have demand because people are going to use it to donate. That's one process, right? But, when you add multiple different processes out there from corporations wanting to buy in, from donors wanting to buy in, right? From volunteers joining in and being rewarded with tokens, once there's more demand, that really increases, the value of it.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to fill in any holes that I missed here. Okay,
yeah,
so you're tokenizing the transactions between like donors and like volunteer programs,
mm-hmm.
and you have like incentives set up where the more people that donate or the more people that volunteer, it's gonna add quote unquote points to the system, and then as it gets bigger and better, then it's going to unlock incentives down the line. Is that good way? Or
it's basically like this, right? It's like a GoFundMe that's transparent, right? In addition to that, we incentivize corporations to join in by giving them advertising opportunities utilizing blockchain technology. These advertising opportunities include purchasing the token, giving it to those volunteers, and utilizing blockchain technology. It's shown right on the blockchain. So that's basically what it is, right? Yeah. And that's like kind of the ecosystem. Now, I can go more detailed than that, but from broad scale, that's what it does.
Yeah, I think a big argument for like a use case such as this in crypto that a lot of people often that they use is that like how is someone in like today's world, how are they gonna be onboarded to this, and like what's gonna make it easy for them? Like why would they want to do this when it's so hard to just learn how to use crypto? So like, is there anything you guys are specifically trying to implement or like add to make it easier for someone to learn how to use it?
100%. And I love that you brought that question because crypto nowadays, unfortunately, like it's so hard to learn, mm-hmm. right? I definitely understand it, right? I sometimes see platforms, I'm like, dude, what the heck is going on here, dude? Like, what are you doing? And I read it 3 times. But no, it's one of our main competencies is the fact that we want individuals to utilize this platform without actually know that they're utilizing blockchain, right? So we're trying to really make this as mass market as possible. And I like giving this analogy. When you drive a sports car, do you know how the sports car is working from inside? Do you know how the engine's running? Like, do you even think about it?
Not most people, yeah.
No, you just think of the UI UX. You utilize your phone, right? You know how to use it. It's very simple. But do you know the back end? And that's what we're aiming to do, right? So all these processes I'm explaining to you, that's the back end, right? But from a broad scale, what a user would see is a GoFundMe page that is transparent. and corporations will be able to go and sponsor projects, like advertise, right, on the platform, utilizing blockchain technology to make it more efficient, right, so they can now reach a wider range of people. And when they sponsor these projects, right, they are giving tokens to volunteers or rewarding them. That's it.
That's awesome, man. I want to get like deeper into DeVo and keep talking about that, but I'm curious, like, what's your personal like background? Like, what motivated you to like start into like volunteering and like help this space and specifically? Like, do you have any like personal connection like in your past, or how did you come into it?
So right now I am a JD MBA final year at UNC. So like I like to call myself like a wolves in sheep's clothing. Like that's what I go by. That's all the state people at UNC do that. But yeah, so like my background is, I went to state, I graduated 2017, and then I worked at Citrix and MetLife and Citrix, MetLife, Next Era Energy. And, through that time, and even when I was at UNC, both at state, when I was working at UNC, I always spent a lot of time really helping my community. And, whether it was a statewide voter program at the state, or student organizations at the state, or even after I graduated, or even at UNC. But as indicated previously, I saw a lot of problems when I wanted to start my own projects, right? And then I saw a lot of friends who were starting their own projects who didn't have the resources, and ultimately, they failed, right? And so, as indicated previously, I thought to myself, well, there has to be a better way, right? But then I tabled it. I'm like, well, if there was a better way, there would have became a better way. But then I saw blockchain technology, and I started doing research. How is blockchain revolutionizing different spaces? And then I started thinking, how is blockchain technology being implemented in philanthropy? It wasn't really being implemented in a sufficient way. So that's why I decided to start DeVo.
Yeah, I think like that's so important. Like you see that in like science as well, like the move to decentralized science, because there's so many issues with like publishing a research paper. If a scientist publishes a research paper and it revolutionizes something, nobody ever hears about the scientist. It just quickly gets like there's no proof of really that they're the ones who made it. It becomes like worldly known unless they win a Nobel Prize or something.
Yeah.
They don't get any recognition that they should for such a revolutionary idea. Yeah. And I think it's kind of like goes hand in hand with what you're trying to do, and it's so valuable.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, man. It's just touch upon the bar. I'm not looking at recognition at all, honestly. And I feel like that, it wasn't an easy process, right? You didn't care. It was definitely not an easy process, but one thing that I feel like is that we have against all other teams is the fact that the passion that we have in our team is phenomenal, right? So I just told my team yesterday, I'm like, if we gave everybody all the intellectual property that we have, right, they could not implement what we're implementing, because our project is not built on Ethereum or Polygon is built on the team, right? Technically that's not right, but it's built on the team, and every single one of that team, they just have that fire passion inside of them to keep on building it. So that's one of the things I'm really proud about.
That's awesome, man. It seems like every team would, like, if you have a team that is just all passionate about it, like, what can stop you,
Yeah, it's phenomenal, man. It's I've worked across multiple different companies, right? I tried to go down the traditional route. As I said, stayed, graduated, then went like straight to Citrix, then went straight to MetLife and worked that corporate job, and it was good. Don't get me wrong. And then I decided, hey, I want to further my career. Decided to get a JD MBA, right? And that's great. It really taught me a lot. And then I decided, I was working as a lawyer, as a legal intern for Next Era is a huge energy company, and I said that there has to be more. How can I give back to my community, right? How can I do this? And DeVo was the answer.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned like a few minutes ago, you were talking about how you want it to seem like they're not even using the blockchain. You want it to be so seamless.
Yeah.
And I was at an event, like a networking event last night, and basically it's like a lot of older people. Like the average age there had to have been like 50s. Yeah. And the first thing you do when you walk up, you write down your name on a name tag and you scan a QR code. And then it was called POAP is the application. Okay. And then you put in your email, or it had an option for your ENS address. Oh, cool. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And it looked like an NFT. So then the guy who was speaking there, he starts speaking and he's like, hey, like he introduced himself and he's like, so the thing you just scanned, the QR code, that sent you an NFT. It's proof of participation. It sent it to your wallet. How many of you guys knew that? And he's like, how many of you guys know what blockchain is? And the number of hands raised was like maybe 10%. Yeah. He was like, this was a demonstration. I was trying to make a demonstration of how easy that was to use and how easy it can be. Like you didn't even know that you were doing it, and it wasn't some difficult thing, especially since they were the one eating the transaction fee. And like that's so like valuable how like there really are steps being taken to make something like that. So like behind the scenes, I guess.
Yeah. I love that actually. It's funny you mentioned that because so one of Go Bit Tech, one of the technical components of our project is that every single person, it's a kind of proof of participation. When they sign up, they get like a digital identifier, right? Just call it like a badge, or like your ID, and they get that in their emails, right? There's a sign up in the protocol. They type in their email, they sign up, and then they get like an email, but that's like a DID, but they don't even know they have a DID. And I love what that guy did because that is where it's supposed to go. It's not supposed to be confusing. This is made for the people, but it seems like a lot of these blockchain projects are solely trying to make it solely for blockchain. That's not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be for everybody.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I feel like that's like really how I think it goes mainstream. It's like if we really like get these things like, okay, you scan a QR code. Everyone is already familiar with how a QR code works. Your camera reads it and it sends you to a link. Like everyone knows that. But then if you just add that aspect of blockchain into it, and if we can do that into many other applications, like for your philanthropy example, like if we can do that and people aren't even realizing they're using blockchain technology, and then you get to a point where there's thousands of people using blockchain technology and you're like, oh, this is because of blockchain technology, this is because of Bitcoin and all the technology behind it. And then they're like, oh, okay, I might want to learn what blockchain is all about.
Like, do you know how the QR code works? I don't know. Like, I sort of, like, dude, I could have, for the life of me, I couldn't. And that's the goal, right? Is people just utilize it. It benefits them. They see the value, but they don't have to know how it works.
Right. So what was like the first time, like when you sat down and you're like, okay, I'm trying to put together this protocol, and like what were the first steps you took? And then also like, what was it different, like compared, like doing a Web3 business?
Yeah.
Like what was the difference you saw in like just regular businesses?
My God.
It's a deep question right there.
There's a lot. There's a lot in that. Well, first the whole project started in that I was like, so, one of my sister actually, she was trying to get to medical school at that time, and in addition to my history, this was like, okay, I gotta do something about this. Was that she needed, I believe it was 3,000 hours or 3,500 hours in order to get to medical school, but she could only do it for a specific volunteer organization who could record those hours. And of course, she's not getting rewarded at all. You're talking about like 8-9 months full-time work over here. You know what I'm talking about? So, my grandmother who was at home, I was like, okay, why don't you just volunteer for her? It's like, no, you cannot. So I'm like, okay, so you're going into a volunteer organization, right? To go volunteer for them. Probably their bottom line is great. But somebody in your own household needs help. Doesn't that defeat the purpose of volunteering? Like what's the purpose here that we're trying to get to? So I thought to myself, well, there has to be, and then I started thinking about all the times I was trying my own projects and I have the resources. I'm like, dude, there's so many problems over here. Like, how do you come to a solution? And then the idea of DeVo was born of, okay, let me try and find a way to record volunteer hours and reward them for their time, right? It started like as a seed. And then it grew to this huge tree where it's like, I'm going to throw a bunch of words out here, but it's kind of like a DAO and DIDs and NFTs and corporations. But that's how it grew to that standpoint. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
That was cool.
So you were kind of motivated by like that personal story you had with your grandma out.
Yeah. And then everything else I faced, it was like, it's like a build-up. Right, it was like that. There's a problem. Oh, okay, problem, and then it was like, okay, come on, there's got to be a better way. Like this can't keep happening, right? And it was like everybody was just ignoring it. It would just become like a way of life, And I feel like that's a danger in and of itself. Is when there is a problem and people just ignore it because they get used to it and they consider it a way of life and there's no way of changing it. That's when you have to change it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's a number of topics that we could talk about that just fit that description, like obesity or a bunch of other things that we've talked about in this podcast before. I'm curious, how did you come up with the name like DeVo? Is that like your business? Is that like what you're marketing it as, or is that just the name of the protocol, or is there separate entities?
Decentralized volunteer,
okay.
Right? DEVO, right? That's that.
Right.
That's I thought that's that's the name of it. But like the whole word is DeVo Protocol DAO, right? A DAO, decentralized autonomous organization, right? So it's kind of like an organization, but like just it's decentralized. More than I have to jump into what that means specifically, but yeah, that's the name of it.
Yeah, I'm curious. Do you think like businesses that are coming out like for blockchain, like behind blockchain technology, like do you think they should like keep that like language of Web3 technology that's kind of not as familiar with like public people, or do you think they should try to move like into a more like baseline like titles for their projects and whatnot? What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like that's. I don't think there's a blanket rule, but I would more tend to side with have to keep it identified with Web3, right? Because unfortunately, nowadays I feel like there's a lot of unfair rhetoric around Web3, right? And, me being very deep into the space, I know that is not the facts, right? And I still feel like that, projects like mine and projects like a lot of others that I've got to know, that I had the pleasure of knowing, can really change and rewrite the script. And I feel like that as more and more Web3 comes to prominence, the more we have to keep identifying that Web3 is the one. So, during the internet age, right, back when it first started, there would be no company out there that was in that business that would not identify them as the internet, right? And there was a lot of speculation about that. I don't know if you ever saw that small short video, or it's like a talk show, and it's like, what is internet, right? And he was like, what is the app? You never seen that?
No.
It was like when it first came out, like people didn't understand what an email was, and they were like, joking about it, right? But you found the tech side and you found the Web 2 side. They were really pushing it. They didn't even care. They knew that they had something revolutionary, and they kept on going. And I feel like we just gotta keep doing the same thing.
Yeah. I was checking you guys out on LinkedIn, like looking at some of your team members.
Yeah.
And it's such like it's like I guess I was like expecting like fewer members and like more like it's such a diverse group of people like expertise in all areas of fields. So I guess like how did you grow your team, and what were you looking for in terms of what people would be good at, like what you needed?
So, I would love to sit here and tell you that it was all me, right? But it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's the project. People have just once they learn about the project, once they get to know the project, they are just captured and they want to work towards it because they see what we're working towards. And that has made it very easy and, has streamlined the process of onboarding these great people, right? So, for example, right, look, we have our Chief Strategy Officer. He has a PhD, for example, right? We have like a team of around 23 people, right? Some in Europe, some in the US, some in the Middle East. And it's not me. It's basically the project is really trying to achieve something that's great, something that will revolutionize philanthropy for the better and really help a lot of these people out there that need help are just ignored. And I feel like a lot of people resonate with that. They want to join that cause.
Yeah, that's awesome. It reminds me of kind of like Tesla and like their model. Like they created this mission, and it's like, okay, they're trying to make the world a better place. They're trying to a number of missions that I can't think of off the top of my head. But like you did the same thing with DeVo Protocol, and you created this mission, and it's really like advertises itself. So like if someone sees like, okay, you're literally trying to help people volunteer, which is helping people help people. So like you're gonna get people that are trying to help people, and it just kind of comes full circle and just like makes your business grow even bigger and bigger.
No, I appreciate that, man. I mean, it's all about noticing the parties in philanthropy and just trying to provide them value. Whether it's a volunteer who wants to be rewarded and record their time, or to get resources, volunteer organization who needs the donations, corporations who want to advertise, right? That GoFundMe advertise model, right? And and just like finding those different parties and just fulfilling their needs in a way that benefits the entire ecosystem. And ultimately, when you help these parties, the people who need help the most are helped, right? So I'm happy we're tracking along. So it's great. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
It's definitely an amazing thing, and I'm curious. Like you mentioned that you're doing a dual degree at UNC.
Yeah.
And so while doing a dual degree and a JD in law, like that's like legit stuff.
Yeah.
And you're simultaneously you're co-founding and running a startup. So I guess, are there any sort of productivity or time management strategies that you've kind of used to really help manage your time?
You know what has made it very, very easy? I tell this to everyone all the time. If I was working on something that wasn't mission driven and I didn't really feel strongly about, I don't think I could have been able to do this. But when you're really working on something that you're very, very passionate about, it just makes it easier. Time flies by. But back to your question about time management strategies. Of course, at the very beginning, it wasn't that seamless. It wasn't that easy. I'm not going to come here and lie to be like, oh, off the bat, it was easy, right? I scheduled time 5 to 6. No, it took a lot of time to get used to it. But, what I've learned is the fact that you have to, in my mind, what I do is at least every week, I kind of plan ahead my schedule and I kind of allocate my time based on what I see as fit. And I give myself a buffer, for example, right? So it'll be like school. I got to go to class. I'm going to spend like 5 hours in class, right? If there's like gaps between that, I fit meetings between that. I block it off my calendar. And then if there's any homework, I allocate time to that. And then I also block off my calendar anytime I have to work alone, right, on the project. So definitely have a full schedule. But I feel like if you plan, it'll make your life way much more easier. And I feel like that every single person has untapped potential, and it's just if you decide to utilize that, and you'd be very surprised at what you could do.
Yeah, I think that's been a reoccurring theme on our podcast. How that passion really allows you to find more time that you didn't think you had.
Yeah.
And like, say you had a class and you have 30 minutes of time in between. Maybe normally you'd, I don't know, pull out your phone or something, but like you're driven to accomplish. Like in your example, you wanna decentralize philanthropy. You wanna make a meaningful impact on the world, which motivates you to use your time more effectively and really take advantage of like any time you have in your schedule.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, you have to. You would just be surprised at what you could do. You'd be just very, very, very surprised. And I just urge everyone just to find that thing that they really do care about. Right? I know this sounds so cliche. I know. I sound like fairly Gary Vee right here. That's not what I'm trying to do, guys. That's not. But I used to always think that. So like, dude, come on, man. Like, stop speaking like that. But it's true. It's true. Just find what you like, and you will see that you can accomplish it if you put your mind to it.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. I'm curious. Like, so obviously you have this mission, and right now it's kind of in its early stages. So like, what are your paths like for taking DeVo like in 5 years or 10 years from now? Like, what are you trying to do to set yourself up for success later?
We're trying to be like, what's the aim?
Yeah, like what are you aiming for, and then like what are some actions or like some things that you want to see happen to your company to get to those points?
We want to be the standard. We want to revolutionize philanthropy and be the standard. We want, when there are specific projects or volunteer organizations, that they have to be DeVo verified, and that is the standard of trust, right? And that's where we're aiming to go. So that is like our ultimate goal in 5-10 years. To be known as the standard in philanthropy that people trust, and people can know that when they donate their money, that they know where their money is actually being spent. We want to be able to be known to be the empowerment of these volunteers, right? That they can now start their own project, be empowered to be rewarded, and actually give back to their community and give back to causes that they like and they feel strongly about. And also that they can volunteer for projects that they know are not just needlessly wasting resources and money, right? Imagine if you volunteer for a cause and you're spending your free time and you're not getting paid, at least right now, you're not getting rewarded, and then you find out they're just like, wasting money on stupid stuff. So that's where we want to be 5-10 years, just to be the standard of philanthropy, be known in the industry for revolutionizing this space. And also, right, and this is the core component, is to uplift the lives of the millions of marginalized individuals who are forgotten, whether it is world hunger, whether it is malnutrition, whether it is children dying from diseases, uplifting those individuals who are forgotten, unfortunately.
That's heart moving, really. That's awesome, man. So I'm curious, like, do you think there's obviously philanthropy is a huge area to be in, and there's obviously many other like errors and problems in the world that could possibly be solved with blockchain technology. So do you have any like off the top of your head, or that you've been thinking about, like, okay, what if blockchain technology was applied to this in this unique way, or like what are your thoughts on other industries?
Oh my God. There's so much it could be applied to, man. One space I see a lot of promise, which I see there's a lot of activity, but it's not saturated at all. I would say it's the carbon credits.
Okay.
Carbon credit industry, right?
Could you elaborate more on that?
Yeah. So are you familiar with carbon credits? For those who are listening, like, carbon credits is basically what companies purchase in order to offset the carbon emissions that they actually produce, right? So, some people are like tokenizing that, going back. So what they do is that they tokenize carbon credits, so individuals, they can seamlessly purchase those carbon credits. We are partnered, for example, with an organization that provides liquidity to carbon credits, because it takes a long time for those to come to fruition. So it gives money to those people who are creating them, like those planting trees, for example. NFTing carbon credits is definitely, is definitely, I feel like, is one of the next moves. The NFT space, as it pertains to the environment, is definitely a hot topic right now. More than happy to jump in, specifically about how I think that's gonna work. But
yeah, I think I don't think I'm like too familiar with like that. That's already having like steps taken to make that happen. But I can definitely see like why that would like be so impactful. And like you said, there are like so many different industries that could be like revolutionized by this very concept. But since you are like a law student and you're soon to graduate with a Doctor of Law, is there anything that you really see from like a regulatory standpoint that's really like holding crypto back, like from like your unique perspective that you could like elaborate on?
The law and crypto. Well, there's definitely is. Just speak broadly. You mean?
Yeah.
I feel like, and this is not legal advice, by the way. I have to say that. This is not legal advice whatsoever. But okay, I almost speak from the heart here. I feel like, unfortunately, every single country out there is actually creating regulation in order to aid crypto come to fruition in their country, right? Or is actively investing in crypto. Like, for example, you go to the Middle East in Dubai, where they've invested a huge amount of money in the metaverse, right? Huge. I think it was like, don't quote me on this side, but it's like $50 billion, something like that, just in the metaverse. And then you see the U.S. just take like the other approach, right? Which is like attacking it. And I'm like, but you know what's funny is like most of the mines, right, are coming from the U.S. So it just does not make any sense to me. Like, why are you trying to hamper this innovation, right? And why are you creating these regulators supposed to help people? By creating these regulations, you're actually hampering an industry which is going to solve a lot of problems out there. So, from a legal standpoint, I feel like there definitely has to be regulation that makes sense, made by people who know what they're talking about, but in a way that doesn't really hamper the efforts of Web3.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I really don't understand like the whole, why are you not like regulating this stuff? And the only argument you hear really is like, oh, criminals use it and it's bad for energy, and like those are the two only arguments you hear, and like they're so weak and they're debunked like many other times. So like it doesn't make any sense.
You know how many things I could use the argument that criminals use it, and it's just like, like dude, that's like it's
like criminals use everything, man. Criminals are stealing gas stations. That means we need to shut down gas stations.
Yeah, or like cars, like runaway cars, like they're horses. That's what you do it.
Yeah, really, literally, man. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, the people try to use that argument. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's a bigger reason behind it why they don't want cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. It takes away from the authoritarian figures in the world. I'm sure people up top are like wondering, like, oh shoot, what am I doing if blockchain technology takes over the world? I don't have control of all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Sooner or later, it's the U.S. is going to catch up, right? Let's just hope it's sooner rather than later. Let me just say that. It's definitely a very interesting field. Definitely really has helped me a lot. Being like law and MBA student, like utilizing, because I mean at State I graduated from Poole College of Management, right? Oh, you too?
Yeah. Well, I haven't graduated yet, but I'm
no, represent. Dude, that business law class, that is as easy as it, dude. That was hard, man. Dude, I did not. But I still remember that class. Kaczynski, was it?
I didn't take that yet.
Oh, dude.
So.
Oh, dude.
Maybe I'll try to stay away from that.
I heard Wake Tech is good, but what I'm trying to say is the fact that graduating from Poole and taking a law and MBA class, law and MBA dual degree at UNC has definitely helped me both in the business side and also in the legal side as I try to push this organization forward. And I felt like it was all meant to be, because I know for a fact that if I started this, without taking this dual degree, like it would have been much harder. So yeah, I'm definitely very grateful, and I'm very privileged to be able to have that opportunity.
Yeah. Before we move into closing questions, I guess there was one thing I saw the other day. I don't remember where I saw it, but I think it was someone speaking in front of Congress, and they were talking about blockchain.
Yeah.
And they were basically saying like you see this new concept, you see so many countries adopting it, and then you see China ban it. And if there's anything we've learned from the past is that if China bans something, immediately invest in it. And I thought that was kind of funny. But so we normally end our podcast with one question, and that is, what is one goal you have in your career or personal life, and what steps are you taking to achieve that goal?
That's heavy, man. So what's one goal in my life and my career?
Your career or your personal life, and like how are you working to achieve that goal?
So I feel like one of my main goals is in order to help these marginalized individuals, really recognize what they're going through and try to uplift their lives in a way which is efficient. Because I feel like right now, especially in philanthropy, it's kind of like, as you can see, I love using analogies, but I feel like it's the best way. And it's like you're filling up. Right now, philanthropy, it's like when people put money in philanthropy, I feel like that it's like they're putting gas in a car that utilizes like 5 gallons a mile. Like a gallon a mile, right? And so my whole goal is to uplift those marginalized individuals in a way that's way more efficient, and in a way that really benefits a lot of the other parties. And I feel like that is such a massive goal, but I feel like it's achievable. And, you know, as I said, in 5-10 years, I want DeVo to be the standard, and I want it to be recognized for its massive positive contribution in the philanthropy space and in helping these people live better lives and not remain forgotten.
That's awesome, man. I'm so thankful that we had the time to like sit down with you today.
Hey,
like,
thanks
talk
for
about
having me,
everything.
man. No, I love this.
Yeah. Before we go, do you have any like handoffs to the audience? Also, if you have any like books that you think like really change your perspective on the world, you can mention those too. But any links, Twitter, how you can find DeVo Protocol.
Yeah. So whether that was so like what was it? Books.
Books if you have any.
Yeah.
And then just how to find you and like DeVo Protocol.
Oh, okay, yeah. So books, how to make friends and influence people, right? Definitely, I know this is a great book.
I agree.
You know, so that's one. And so in DeVo Protocol, you go to www.devoprotocol.org. On the top right, it should have all our socials, right? And you can go in every single one of them. Yeah, you know, feel free to reach out to me, right? My email is Hamdee, HAMDEE, so it's H as in ham, A as in Andy, M as in Matt, DEE at devoprotocol.org. And yeah, I'm always on my email. You know, it's more than texting. I don't know if that's good or bad. It's kind of sad. But,
we'll make sure to link everything below in the show notes and everything.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, reach out to me. I mean, you know, follow us. You know, contact me, join us. We're definitely going places, and we're definitely going to revolutionize the space. And yeah, we're going full steam ahead.
Awesome. And I guess I feel like I should say none of this was financial advice.
Or law advice.
None of this was legal advice, financial advice, none of it. Please.
All right, thank you so much for being here, man. I really enjoyed it.
No, appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please do review if you are listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. See you in the next one.